The girl can still vividly recall that day. It was just an ordinary day, nothing out of the ordinary, with the usual sunny and windy weather. She was working in the herb garden like she always did, when suddenly, she heard a voice calling out her name. The voice asked, "Are you Lottie Peon?" and was accompanied by a bright light. It caught her off guard, but she soon realized that the voice was correct. She was indeed Peon. The voice continued to speak to her, revealing that it had a mission for her. The young girl couldn't help but wonder if it was a message from God. She pondered whether her life would have been more peaceful if she hadn't heard that voice or if she had simply run away. During that time, God existed in this world, a God who performed miracles and took care of everything. Alongside the king of the gods, there were 12 other gods. Countless people received messages from God through priests. But as someone who didn't believe in all of this, the girl thought it had nothing to do with her. She believed that God had chosen to personally contact her. After contemplating this, God instructed her to create an elixir of immortality for the gods and name it nectar. The girl was left in a daze, unable to comprehend why God desired an elixir of immortality. God knew that it was impossible for her to create such an elixir within her limited lifespan, even if she dedicated her entire life to it. Therefore, God decided to grant her a new life. God informed the young girl that if she succeeded in creating the elixir, she would be revered for the rest of her life, and even the gods would acknowledge her existence. The girl thought it would be better to become a goddess, as she believed that the god of the new life meant she would study herbalism until her death, and even beyond. However, she was quite naive at that time. Peon placed her hand on her chest and accepted the conditions set by God, assuring him that she would create the elixir. She embraced the offer from the king of the gods, and thus, her new life began. In this life, she faced challenges, but she dedicated herself to the study of herbalism for a long time, and it was through this study that she found her path. She had a phenomenal development. Then she died less than a year later in the body of a 3-year-old child. It was only when she became an adult that she was able to regain her memories. She blames herself for having made such a mess. The age at which she regained her memories, even the cycle of rebirths, was random. Plus, herbalism regresses with each rebirth in this life. She must invent a cure for hair loss. First life, she became a goblin. Second life, herbalism still didn't follow her progress, and in her fourth life, a dragon came to her, and they became friends after drinking together. In her fifth life, she was finally born a mermaid of long life, but how to learn herbalism while living underwater, and it turns out that she doesn't sing very well in her seventh life. She died as soon as her memories came back because the king of demons cut her country in half. The eighth life, she was finally born an elf, and if she takes good care of her life and her health, she can easily live 1,000 years. But after only 10 years after her memories came back to her, she fell ill and died. It's the illness that the elves catches in her ninth life. She finally prepared an imperfect elixir but good enough to be presented to God. The gods studied it, and said that it was not bad, but to rise to the rank of God it is necessary to invent a perfect elixir. The young girl was very surprised and saddened. She said that was all she could do and asked God to let her choose her own life next time. God said it was impossible, but he would send her straight into the next life. The girl wondered if she could just hit the king of the gods just one time. In her ninth life, the memories of her past lives came back to her. She is reborn again. She sees the same sky as when she first saw the god. She is angry that the gods behind these clouds can sit quietly drinking the elixir she prepared. She thinks that she is going to die here again, and so she runs forward. But someone puts his hand forward and asks her where she was running. She ran faster and shouted to inform all the intellectual people and gods of this world that she, the Lottie Peon of this rebirth, is on strike. She shouted with all the volume that she honestly does not want to work anymore. Now the girl cries a little remembering her past rebirths, but in her eyes burns a spark of confidence and a desire incredibly strong to stop working. She decided to start by looking at her body. She looks like she was 13 or 14. Peon wondered if she would remember it later. She noticed that she was quite cute, but there is one thing: she sneezed and covered her mouth with her hand. After that, she removed her palm and saw traces of blood. She was very scared because she didn't feel any pain, which means that she suffers from lung disease. It is a body whose lifespan is limited. She is like a sunfish. Now the young girl is starting to reassure herself by telling herself that it is not serious because she can prolong her life by other ways. It's just a matter of time. She thinks if she becomes an 8th level wizard, then the lifespan will increase. But she doesn't have enough mana, and if she becomes a sword master, then. But she stops at the thought. Spiritual kinship or divine power, this does not exist either. The young girl wonders with irritation what her body can do, when suddenly she hears someone calling her princess, which shocks her a lot. In this rebirth, she is a princess. The knight said he was scared because he couldn't find her for a long time, and the girl noticed her emblem, realizing it was the emblem of the kingdom of Pandarian. The girl asked him if he was a knight of the kingdom of Pandarian, and he answered yes, hesitating because he did not expect such a question from the princess. She asked him if he called her princess, because she was a princess of the kingdom of Pandarian, and he answered yes. But because of these questions, the knight has a lot of questions to ask the princess. The girl smirks. She thought she had nothing, but it turns out she had power and money. This place has been around for over 1,000 years. She is the princess of the great kingdom of Pandarian, which means she has a lot of money. Her body doesn't work well, so she doesn't need to work. Anyway, she can just prolong her life with expensive elixirs. She pointed at the knight and told him she was tired and he should take her to her room. But when she saw her room, she was very surprised because it looked more like a prison than a princess's room. The knight explains that it is the prison, but at the same time the room of Her Highness Princess Lodi. After his words, the girl realizes that in this life her name is really Lodi. She tells the knight that she seems to have memory problems, then asks if she is the king's illegitimate daughter and the king's daughter from his second wife, to which the knight smiled and said no. After that, Lodi said she must have done something wrong. The knight told her that Her Royal Highness had been arrested for trying to poison Her Highness the former emperor, and Lodi was shocked. She didn't understand what was happening here, so she lay down on her bed and hugged her legs. She tried hard every time, and in return she got a princess with an illness, who no longer has any talent, and who lives in prison. But the good news is that she managed to escape during her last walk. In these circumstances she could have died and been reborn. She said that she would no longer make the elixir, which means that when she passes on, she will be subject to terrible things, as the king of the gods will try to shake her up, which means that she must find another way to get out of this situation. She decides to wash her face first. She went to a small bowl, where there should be water, but there is no water, but she can see spirits. The fact is that she cannot summon spirits. But it's not hard to call a spirit that floats around her. The spirits can sense the king of spirits' aura. One of the spirits asks the girl if she made a contract with the king of the spirits. She answers in the affirmative. She made a contract with the 4th spirit king. In these past rebirths, the girl met the 4th spirit king and signed a contract. A spirit contract is a soul contract, so she can summon the spirit king. However, if she called him in her body, she'll pass away. They realized that even though she was a human being, she had made a contract with the 4th spirit king. They asked her if she was a wanderer, and the girl replied that she was. She asked them if they could make some water, so she could wash her face. Spirits and some intelligent beings, who knew her identity, called her a wanderer of life. The spirits respond to Lotti's request and bring her clean water, asking her if she likes it. But Lotti does not respond. She washes her face as she wanted, with a fresh face and new ideas. She thinks about what to do next. Usually in such cases, Lotti tries to make the most of life and goes to the Crownies forest located in the heart of the continent. There were thousands of monsters there, including hippies, orc, and even dragon were constantly gathering in this forest. In the middle of the forest was the Tower of Lotti. This tower was taller than the trees of the forest. In the tower the girl organized her own laboratory, whose raw materials were forest plants. Because in the forest many rare and unusual plants grow, but she cannot go there right away, because in her state it could cost her her life. So Lotti decides to stay here for a while to regain strength. The door opened with a bang. A boy with a dark and caustic grimace appeared on the threshold. He kept calling her an idiot, stating Lotti lost her memory. This boy was dressed very richly and was accompanied by an adult who was probably his bodyguard. All this indicated that this boy was not an ordinary boy and that he was probably very influential despite his young age. The boy smiles and repeats that Lottie is an idiot who has lost her memory. Then he looked the young girl in the eyes and told her with venom that she was naive and stupid to think that getting rid of the former emperor would clean her dirty DNA. In the face of such serious reproaches, Lottie did not utter any response. She remained focused on her own thoughts or simply did not wish to answer the little one's questions. However, the boy complains firmly about her line of conduct. He asked Lottie if she's listening. She replied absently that no and asked him why he was asking this. Her reaction hurt the young man's ego, and he lost patience, shouting at the young girl because she had dared to ignore him. She asked him who he was, because she didn't remember much. Lottie started to speculate, but the boy, angry at the girl's behavior, shouted his name in a fit of wounded ego. He was the second Prince Arkin Pandarayan of the royal family. She calmly calls him by his first name, but Arkin insists that she address him as Prince Arkin. She refuses, which angers him. Lottie guesses from the expression on his face, because that he did not expect such a reaction, and wonders about her old personality. She thought she had lived in fear, never protesting and letting them torture her. Lottie told the boy that she agreed to call him Prince, but in exchange she asked about what happened when she tried to poison the emperor, as maybe it will restore her memory. Upon seeing the strong young girl, Arkin is subconsciously frightened, realizing that his previous approach will not work. Arkin stands in front of the girl and, stammering, tells her what happened. While she was having tea with the emperor, suddenly he fell. The investigators noted that the tea was not very good. Moreover, the servants of the empress testified that Lottie was involved in the poisoning. After saying this to the girl, Arkin becomes bolder, probably because he feels powerful again, thinking that Lottie will be afraid. He points his finger at the girl, calling her guilty of poisoning, but his face shows that the boy's confidence is gone. Lottie smiles kindly in response and thanks Arkin. He asks the girl if she listened to him, but Lottie no longer pays attention to the boy. She thinks about what she heard today. Everything has been confirmed for her: a lack of strength and skill, a princess in poor health who tried to poison the empress. For Lottie, this arrangement looks more and more like a false accusation. After weighing all the facts, Lottie declares to the others that she is going somewhere, because she has urgent matters to attend to. She even thanks them for their hard work. But the knight and the prince try to stop the young girl. Arkin, in particular, does not stay inactive. He tries to use his little influence as a prince to block Lottie's path by shouting that she is not going anywhere. He insists that the criminal go back to prison. He is supported by the knight. He says that if Lottie comes back now, they will turn a blind eye to her little uproar. Arkin takes the offensive and tries to drag her back and tell her that she had better go back herself. The efforts of the knight and the prince seem very sympathetic to Lottie, which she finds cute, but she has already decided that she will leave. Lottie addresses the knight and the prince, saying that she has the privilege to move on a certain distance granted by the Pandarayan family. This right stipulates that the nobles, even if they have committed a crime, can circulate in a certain distance, as long as their status is confirmed. Lottie's statement initially shocked everyone, but later Arkin's chaperone confirmed Lottie's words by saying that such a law does indeed exist. Lottie adds that in such a case, a relative or a trusted servant would have to accompany her, but she immediately says that she does not have such a person. At the same time, Lottie continues to look at little Arkin. He takes Lottie's hand and tells her that it is time to leave. Arkin becomes Lottie's escort, and the boy is followed by his trusted servant. A little later, Arkin realizes that he has become a sort of surety for Lottie, which he does not like. However, he cannot do anything, and they walk together. Arkin and Lottie found themselves in front of the throne of the Emperor Aaron Pandarian. A man with black hair dressed in a light purple robe looks at them with pride. Clearly not delighted to see Lottie, such a look is not at all that of a father looking at his child. The Emperor Aaron turns to his son and asks him why he brought a criminal here. Arkin tries to answer the Emperor, but his father's furious and unwavering gaze has a detrimental effect on the boy, who struggles to articulate a few words. Lottie defends the boy and says that it is not Arkin's fault and that she asked to be brought here. The Emperor remains calm on the surface, but the tone of his words when he questions the young girl suggests that he is even more furious than before. Lottie declares bluntly that she came to see the Emperor to clear her name. The Emperor asks her how she knows that she is being accused if she lost her memories. For Lottie, the fact that the Emperor answered her is already a good sign. She looks at Aaron more closely and realizes that something is wrong. For a moment, a triumphant smile covers the face of the young girl. However, she reasonably decides that she must first think about her own life. She takes a few steps towards the Emperor, asking him to let her see the former Empress. In exchange, she promises to prove that all the accusations against her are false. She stands before the Emperor, waiting for a response to her request. She is almost certain that this is an opportunity to exonerate herself. However, the Emperor's response is not very optimistic. The Empress is about to die, and her request now seems like insanity. Aaron calls for the guards. At the same time, Lottie tries to seize her last chance, and tries to persuade the Emperor by telling him that she only needs an hour of time and that she will prove her innocence. The Emperor and Lottie looks at each other silently. Arkin addresses the young girl, telling her that he does not understand what she is doing, because if she fails, she will be executed. But the young girl tells the boy not to worry. After a few minutes of waiting, the Emperor finally authorizes Lottie to visit the Empress. It is encouraging, and the young girl's eyes light up at the idea that she has succeeded. She thinks that 1 hour is not enough, but it's better than nothing. But the Emperor has other ideas in mind. He annoys the young girl and tells her that he will only allow her to hold the meeting for half an hour, no more. The king reminds her of the king of the gods. Finally, Lottie arrives at the door of the Empress. It is a spacious room decorated in white. It is richly furnished, and there's also a portrait of the Empress herself. The Empress is in discomfort. Moreover, she realizes that her condition is even more serious than she thought, because the breathing of the Empress has slowed down. The breathing of the Empress is too slow, and her age complicates things. After examining the Empress's condition, Lottie concludes that it is not poison, but a substance that resembles it, and the tea leaves given to the Empress was quite ordinary. It could easily be bought in the capital on almost every street corner. Lottie asks the servants why she is kept in prison if the poison has not been found. She is told that it's only been 2 days since the results came out. She asks if the rest of the Empress's food has been tested, but she is told that the Empress has only tasted tea. It is added, however, that no poison was found in the cup or the teacup. Lottie thinks she is missing something very important. She develops a plan and calls the spirits to check something. The results are negative. The spirits found nothing. Lottie then solemnly declares that she knows what is happening. The Emperor enters the room with his entourage. He informs them that the half-hour allocated to the young girl for the inspection has already passed and asks for the results of the inspection. She notices a man she has never seen before. He's neither as a servant nor as a knight. He is well-dressed, with a short haircut and a well-kept beard. However, his face seems more confident and brazen than the others. The Emperor sits at the table. Lottie does the same. Aaron asks her if she has found the cause of the poisoning. Lottie replies in the affirmative and says that the tea leaves were good, but that it was the water that was the problem. He tells her that it was impossible, because the water in the palace used that day came from the Tiani fountain. The fountain was blessed by the fairies, and anyone who drinks from it gains strength and energy. Plus, the water from this fountain improves the taste of food. The Emperor reasonably asks how the Empress could have been poisoned, when the whole royal family drinks from the same fountain, which prepares their meals and everyone uses the water, but only the Empress fell ill because of the water. Lottie affirms that the whole problem comes from the fact that the Empress received tea brewed in this water. According to her, the tea leaves do not mix well with the water from the Tiani fountain. The advanced age of the woman also played a role in the poisoning. The Emperor questions Lottie on what she said earlier, understanding that due to the incompatibility of water and tea leaves and the age of the Empress, her body did not support the tea well. Lottie confirms everything she said. The Emperor Aaron then turns to the Chamberlain and asks him if there are still any tea leaves left. The Chamberlain responds saying yes, He is then ordered to make tea with the water from the fountain. A certain time passes, and the tea is brewed with the water from the fountain. It's ready in the kettle. It is poured into cups. However, someone needs to drink it to prove her innocent. At the same time, the noble states it won't be so easily verified as an ingredient issue, so he suggests that Lottie drinks it. Lottie looked at him unhappily and said to herself that on the one hand, she was the person closest to the queen in terms of health, and on the other hand, he was literally forcing her to do it. And she was wondering if she should refuse or have a drink. Suddenly, His Highness intervenes in the conversation and says that it is not necessary because he is going to try the tea himself. After his words, the servant Bose then exclaims, he is ready to try it himself. They don't even know how to cure it, but the king denies it and continues to say he will try it himself. Moreover, he added that he thought the princess knew the cure, since she knew the cause. The girl smiled and said yes. She began to feel more relieved. The king turned to the Marquis Floyd and asked him if that was enough. He bowed and said yes, he agreed with the king's words. Lottie looked closely at Marquis Floyd. She found that he looked somewhat sour. The king took a sip of tea. Everyone carefully observed his movements and made sure he was doing well. Lottie smiled because she had confidence in his abilities. After a short pause, the king said he felt something strange but not enough to faint. Lottie confirms her words. She explains that everything is as it must be, and that the reason for this is the great age difference, as well as the enormous difference in physical condition between the emperor and the former queen, which is the reason for the different symptoms. In his case, there will only be a little pain in the stomach. The king understands her words and inquires about the queen. He wants to know if the cause of the empress being unable to wake up is caused by old age, but Lottie denies it and says that the cause is probably the wrong method of treatment. Until now, the prescription of medicine was based on the principle of poisoning, and as he realized, if the wrong medicine is administered, the patient's condition will worsen. After these words, the king called the chamberlain. The emperor ordered an investigation, and since the princess claims to know the cure, he must check it out and get the medicine, which he accepted, saying that all the wishes of the king would be granted. Lottie said to herself that if all the charges against her are dropped, that only means one thing: she will be able to return to her beautiful and luxurious room, where there will be beautiful furniture and a comfortable atmosphere, and where she can eat, sleep, and play. After thinking that the king might feel bad and want to reward her, what should she ask him in this case? Suddenly, the king approaches her and calls her princess. Lottie is shocked, because she didn't even notice when he approached her. The emperor asked her how she learnt such knowledge. Who had taught her all this? Was it her? The young girl said to herself that she didn't know who he was talking about, because she didn't understand who he was talking about. The emperor asked her again. Lottie immediately denied it, saying that she had learned it on her own. The king looks at her, thinks for a few seconds, then closes his eyes and asks if the princess is tired. He tells her to go back to her room. The guy starts to walk away from Lottie, going in the opposite direction. Lottie was taken to a building that did not look like a palace, but instead like a mansion. She went to explore it more closely. She moved forward with the servant, and the young girl notices the garden, but it is not covered with a variety of fragrant flowers and is not in a good condition. The garden does not look particularly decent. It can be said to be in a deplorable state. Lottie is still approaching closer and notices that the furniture is of poor quality and can break at any time. She finds this building quite strange. It seems to be good and not so good. The young girl thinks it is a doll's house with a beautiful facade. The girl is taken to the princess's room. She immediately notices that the room is a bit small, but compared to the room in the prison where she previously lived, this room is simply divine. Lottie asks this servant how many other people are made available to him. He replies that he only knows one servant who is now heading towards her. Suddenly, the young girl hears a noise behind her. She turns around and sees a servant who is looking in her direction and shouts enthusiastically, "Princess!" The servant even has tears in her eye. He tells her that she is her personal servant, and as she has already arrived, he asks the princess for permission to leave, because he has important matters to settle. Betty smiles with tears in her eyes. She says that she knew that the princess was not capable of such a thing, but no one believed her. Betty is very happy that Princess Lottie was able to return, but at the same time, she wonders why the young girl is so silent. Of course, she was never very talkative, but at the same time, she became someone else, something changed in her. The girl covers her face with her hands and says that she has lost her memory and that she doesn't remember anything, and questions what happened in the past. Betty is very scared and hysterical because she thinks that she is responsible for her mistress's memory loss, because she did not give her her daily medicine at the scheduled time. The maid starts crying. Lottie takes her hands and tells her that it's not her fault at all, and that she doesn't need to worry and cry. Betty does her best to hold back her tears, but they still run down her cheeks. Betty says that she is the only servant here and Princess Lottie has only her in the royal palace, and she has only Princess Lottie. Because of her words, Lottie thinks that they are actually closer than she thought before. The girl selfishly thought that her memory bothered no one and that no one cared, but she was wrong. She collapsed on the ground, and hugged Betty and apologized to Betty, stating that she is the only one she has in the palace, but all Betty can do now was to help her regain her memories. And these words made Betty smile happily. To summarize everything that Betty said, the princess is 15 years old, and the servant is the same age as her. Only the crown princess and the crown prince are above her, and Arkin is below her. The story clearly shows that there is a war going on between the crown prince and the crown princess right now, all because they are the same age and the area is exceptionally talented. Arkin is inferior in quality. The princess says to herself that this child is better than she thought, but she also asks the servant why people hate her. She is nothing exceptional, and that is probably why she is not loved, but the servant knows the truth. She says that the young girl is not really the daughter of Her Highness. The princess says that she heard that she was not illegitimate, but Betty explains that the young girl is officially Her Majesty's daughter. This happened 10 years ago. It is said that the king took the girl with him and told everyone that she was his daughter. However, Her Majesty accepted the girl as her own child. Listening to this story, the princess holds her head and realizes that this is the end, because if Betty knows about it, most people know about it. The princess remembers a conversation with the king, who asked her where all this knowledge comes from, and when he asked her who he received it from, he must have been referring to her mother. She understood why the queen and the others hated her. But why did the king hate her? Now it doesn't matter anymore. Lottie believes there is nothing that could surprise her now. Betty explains that there is nothing left for them to eat and that they might starve. She adds that there was only sprouted potato. She inquires if she should boil them. Lottie told the servant to rest, because she will go get food for them. The servant replied that no, she shouldn't because she will go to work at the other palace and thus go shopping, to which the princess responds, "There's no need for that." Arkin and his servant approached them. He pointed at the maid and asked her why the house was so dirty. Moreover, the guys brought delicious food which could only please the girls. The princess and the maid look at the sumptuous dishes with delight and ate them as quickly as possible. While the boy asks them if they always starve, Betty replies that they are not starving, but that she has not eaten for a few days. The princess looks at the boy and asks him why he came, and he awkwardly replies that it's nothing, he was just worried. Before these words escape his lips, she asks him with a smile if he was worried about her. Arkin, embarrassed, starts to say that no, he wasn't worried. The princess says she was worried about him, and he blushes a little and asks if the girl was really worried about him. She says yes. She had to leave so quickly that they didn't even have time to talk, but even so, she was afraid that he would be punished by the emperor. The boy turns away from her and tells her that she is not in a position to worry about such a thing. The boy says that she worries about unnecessary things. Suddenly she notices a fresh burn on the boy's hand.